Hey guys, Solomon here. I hope you are having a great day. In today's video, I am excited to announce that I hit the National Master title by hitting that 2200 ELO mark. And yeah, I mean, this has been really a dream of mine, a goal of mine since I was a kid to hit Master in chess. And I couldn't have done it without y'all. So first off, I want to say thanks for the support that you guys have given. I mean, really, without this channel and without y'all watching it, supporting it, you know, giving me feedback, I don't think I would have ever hit Master. I really don't. I think, you know, this channel has helped my chess a lot. And, you know, I just want to say thanks, first off, right? I did so in my recent tournament by going 6-0 with nothing but the Hippo, right? First off, shout out to Walter for this guy. He got this for me in Rwanda. It's freaking awesome. You know, there you go. There's a close-up. Okay. But, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the Hippo, you know, it's done good for me, right? And I'm not saying any of this to brag, I promise, but I'm just trying to let you all know that I really do believe that the Hippo works. That it's a strong system for both white and black. If you haven't tried it, I really think you're missing out. It does take a while to learn and to master, but once you do, I mean, it's a dangerous weapon, right? I've used it to gain over 100 ELO and hit NM, right? CM and NM. I used it to be a 25-13 international master, which is my highest win to date in tournament chess, right? I used it obviously to hit national master, and I used it to win my recent tournament 6-0. So, you know, the Hippo is a dangerous weapon, and, you know, we're going to be focusing in on it in today's videos. We go over a couple of the games in my recent tournament, and we're also going to be, you know, going over the rest of the games as the week unfolds. Okay, so... by the way, if you guys don't play the Hippo, that's totally cool, right? That's totally cool. I still think that these games have a lot of stuff that can be helpful to you guys, right? A lot of instructive positions to think through, ideas. I'm going to share with you guys how I approach positions, how I think about the game of chess. And a lot of these principles, you know, you can translate over to other openings and really any position in chess at all. Okay, so let's get it rolling here. I'm starting out this tournament officially on USCF's website as 2161. There was another tournament that hadn't, you know, updated yet, but here we go. 2161. Yeah, going up against my guy Scott. And okay, I mean, I'm playing as black. We see the move E4. Y'all know what I'm doing. 1, 2, and 3. We see knight C3. This is not the best setup for white. Okay, a 2-pawn center, and you see this all the time, by the way. I see this all the time, a 2-pawn center. In fact, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I saw a single 3-pawn center in this entire past tournament. But it's just not the most aggressive setup for white, and it makes the game hard for white in terms of continuing in the middle game. Let's take a look. As black, though, we're just continuing, right? We're tucking those knights, fianchettoing our bishops. Queen D2, hey, we don't want to allow bishop H6, trading off our very valuable bishop on G7. Let's play H6 ourselves. Right. And by the way, you could allow bishop H6, but, you know, I think at that point, you know, we're kind of trading into a game that's less sharp, right? Less active, less dangerous from the black side. So let's play H6, keep those bishops on the board. We play B6, fianchetto our second bishop, tuck that second knight, and play A6. Now here when I played A6, I was really looking to play B5. The moment that I ever see my opponent castle queenside, I am looking at aggressive play on the queen side. People say the Hippo is not aggressive, and they're simply wrong, okay? B5 here, trying to kick that bishop around, maybe even B4, kicking that knight around, which, by the way, defends this very valuable pawn on E4. White responds in the game by playing the move of D5, but I do want to cover, even if white plays A4, even if white does this, okay, and I'll make a video on this soon, kind of covering how we can attack the queen side very aggressively when we see that king end up transporting over to C1. But okay, I mean, here in this case, we're playing B5 anyways. We're going crazy here. Seriously, we're playing aggressive, okay? We're playing B5. What are we doing? Well, if the bishop runs, I mean, this is great for us, right? If the bishop runs, I mean, we have a great position there. We can even just kick that knight, capture off that pawn, E4. We're big chilling in that kind of scenario. I would also mention that if taking, okay, we just take back. And if you take back with the knight, white just lost the game. This is checkmate, right? Took 10 moves to set up the Hippo, and at move 13, we just won. Okay, so knight takes doesn't work. Bishop takes, we don't get checkmate, but we still get a great game with rook A1 check, bishop takes E4, And there's a lot of attacking ideas here for black, right? Including, c6 and getting this queen some more vision along some of these squares. Probably my favorite idea is queen a8. Queen b8 is also an idea as well, but I mean, even visually, queen a8, doubling up on that knight, looking at queen a2, I mean, that is a dangerous idea. So, look at queen b8, queen a8, all that kind of stuff. And the crazy thing is, we're not even down a pawn here. We're not even down a pawn. Okay, now, sometimes in this kind of, crazy give up a pawn idea, you don't always get the pawn back. But even then, the computer oftentimes likes the hippo's side. So just wanted to mention that. My opponent responds, though, with the move of d5. Okay, Scott playing d5, advancing in the center. Whenever I see this kind of thing on e6, I'm going, okay, I'm playing e5 pretty quickly, right? I don't even have to think about this too much. And, yeah, okay, I mean, white here plays the move of knight h2. Actually, a pretty good move here from white. I was, looking at this move, and I was thinking, gosh, knight h2 might be a good idea here, and that's exactly what was played. Notice here, if white just plays quietly, right? They just keep playing normal chess. We play f5, right? We play f5. By the way, which one of these two pawns do we want to start pushing, and which one of these pawns do we never want to move? Well, of course, I just made the move. But notice here, guys, if we play a move like c6 or c5, white takes, d6 is a huge target. Not good at all. Backwards pawn, terrible. But our f pawn is good to go. Now, if we switch the pawn structure and we have, our pawns down to e6 and d5, in that case, we have more of a French defense structure. So in that case, we don't want to push our f pawn, and we want to push our c pawn like crazy, right? And I'm talking specifically about locked up centers. But okay, in this case, again, we don't want to play c6, right? Because white just takes, and d6 is a terrible weakness, not to mention d5 as well. I mean, look at that. d5 is weak, b6 is weak, white is, all of a sudden they have amazing, active pieces. Instead, right, we got to play the move of f5. Okay. Actually threatening to just trap that bishop. If white, gives that bishop some room, okay. We trap that bishop. And here we could even play a move like b5, knight c5, get active, black here with an amazing game going forward. And even bishop c8 ideas, right? White has locked down this bishop at some point. Let's play bishop c8, get this bishop more active, okay? But okay, going back to e5, we have the move of knight h2 instead, and after f5, f4. White here giving an aggressive approach. We have this pawn tension, a bunch of pawn tension right in the center of the board. But okay, what do I do here? I ended up taking on f4. The computer likes moves like taking on e4, playing b5, that kind of stuff. But, e takes f4 is a close second, and I actually like this move practically the most, just giving my bishop some room. And from here, apparently, we can play b5 instead of moving this knight, which is what I did. If a move like b5, we can always just throw that knight in and take back with the pawn. Notice, by the way, if we took back with the knight, white could just get a check in on the king on e8, which isn't the best scenario for us, so we'd probably just take back with the pawn there if we do end up taking back. And okay, this is interesting. I think this is playable for black, but I don't really regret not playing this. I think that black has a couple of isolated pawns that could be pretty big weaknesses in the future. Our light squares are also a little bit loose. Okay, I'm not going to stand out here and say that white's winning. White's not winning at all. In fact, the computer slightly likes black, but this is not the ideal position that I personally like getting with the hippo. But if you do, 100% go for it, right? Instead, after bishop takes, I just play the move knight e5, trying to kick that bishop back. I play queen d7. Now my king has the option of castling queenside. And, okay, bishop takes e5 is seen. Guys, I do not want to take back with this pawn. Okay, and this is a big mistake that I see often. Okay, in the hippo, when, white pushes one of their pawns like this to d5, and we have a lockup here on the d file, we hardly ever want to move our d pawn by taking something. Hardly ever, because all this does is give white really leverage to play d6 at some point, which right now is the best computer move, just advancing in the center. When we take, white takes back, and this is just not fun. Okay, is it completely lost? No, but it's not fun. We take on e4. Okay, we still lose a pawn on b6, right? We could play a move like bishop c6, computer move. White plays rook e1. We just have a lot of weaknesses here, and at the end of the day, white has very active pieces. In fact, The biggest thing that stands out to me is the fact that both of these rooks are crushing both of these rooks in terms of activity and piece placement, right? So, yeah, the rooks are more active, and honestly, white's pawn structure is a lot better here. So, okay, I did not want to go with that. Instead, I take back with the bishop, and here we have the move of e takes f5. I believe I was expecting a move like knight f3 here, attacking my bishop. Okay, but instead we see this move of really just capturing off that pawn. I thought a little bit here, and I almost played this move of knight takes f5, but I was a little bit concerned about knight f3. Notice here, by the way, if, after knight f3, my bishop moves somewhere, white's able to throw in a check against my king, maybe even throw a rook into that e6 square following the check. And that is not looking good for black in the slightest. Not looking good. Okay, so, in this instance, I could castle, and white could take on e5, and I could take back with the d-pawn. This isn't terrible for black, okay? This is playable, but this is not my ideal position, right? So instead, after e takes f5, I just castle. Right now, notice here, white could still play knight f3. White could still play that. And then we're going to get the same exact position. Knight takes e5, d takes. Same position, right? Not my dream hippo position, but still very solid. Probably just around a dead even game. And from there, I try to push for the one in the end game. But in this scenario, by castling queenside first, I give my opponent an option, right? And this is something that you guys can think about. Sometimes giving your opponent options isn't bad, right? If you can force a line that, let's just say, is even, right? Why force that line if you could offer your opponent more opportunities, and in all those opportunities, the best case scenario is for them to go into the line that you could have forced, right? So basically, if you play perfectly, your opponent, if they play perfectly, you're going to get the line that you could have forced, and if they don't play perfectly, then you have a really fun game, right? So that's what I tried to do here with castling queenside. I gave my opponent the option of taking on g6, going up a pawn, and that's what he did. Okay, now here the computer actually likes black. I didn't really calculate this too much. I just felt like, black had a lot of great activity. h4 is already attacked, by the way. Okay, h4 is already attacked. This bishop is a monster right now. My bishop on b7 isn't amazing, in all honesty, but it is kind of the glue keeping this position together. It is putting some pressure on d5, and a lot of my pieces could get activated here pretty quickly, right? In the game, we have the move of knight f3, a blunder from white, and in that case, I play bishop f4, white resigns, right? White resigns here because, as highlighted, that bishop just pins the queen to the king on c1, and that's a ball game, right? That's it. So white resigns here. White could have continued playing, just gave up their queen, but at this point, I'm up 5 points in material. As long as I don't blunder, black's just crushing this position, right? Yeah, it's just over. So, okay, knight takes g6 is played. Knight f3, obviously a blunder because of bishop f4 with that pin threat. White was obviously just trying to defend their pawn on h4. How else could white defend their pawn on h4 and kind of avoid a pin? Well, let's just say white plays a move like queen e1, right? By the way, that's not the best move, okay? A good move here for white could be something like queen d3 or even king b1, both of which just give the pawn right back, okay? But let's say white plays a move like queen e1, for example, right? Getting this queen out of the pin and defending that pawn. Well, okay, now we play this rook over. Okay, now we're really threatening to check and win the queen anyways, or even just take this knight, right? If you run away with king b1, we can take the knight, we're attacking our queen, we're going to be up material. Okay, if the queen runs again, all right, we can play a move like queen g7, right? Forming a little nice battery ram on that knight on c3. If this knight wants to run, b2 is going to be extremely vulnerable. And if rook d3, okay, we play rook f8. Notice the activity of black's pieces here, right? White's piece is a little bit funky, a little bit discoordinated. Knight f3, we throw a knight into f4. Ton of weaknesses here. A ton on the line here for white. I love this for black, right? And that's kind of why I went into this line in the first place, okay? But again, after knight takes, we have the move knight f3, bishop f4, white resigns. The Hippo 1-0 in the tournament so far. Now, Game two, right? Game two. I'm going up against another solid player here. This time playing with the white pieces, and okay, I play this move of G3. I go back and forth between G3 and B3, but recently I really just like prioritizing kingside, development. And it's nice to have that as well in terms of, transposing into other openings. Because G3 and Bishop G2, those are just solid moves for white. Those are solid moves. Okay. Even if you're not playing the Hippo, it's not like white's doing bad here. Okay. So, in this case, I play T3, E3, right? Do my usual thing. I play B3 here, fianchetto that bishop, tuck that knight. C6, I play H3 here. Bishop G6, I advance immediately with G4. Okay, now, whenever I'm looking at G4 or G5, when I'm playing the Hippo, first off, I'm asking myself, do I get this with tempo, right? That's huge. If this bishop stayed on F5, right, if white here just played some kind of move like A6, I might play G4 almost immediately, getting tempo on that bishop, right? Now, in this case, when I play G4, I don't have tempo, right? And oftentimes white can play, in this case, black can play a move like H5 and start putting pressure on this pawn immediately, depending on their setup, okay? But in this case, H5 is just not that scary. It's just not, because we have knight F4, okay? Knight F4 is one of the options. G5 is also very playable, but I like knight F4 attacking this bishop. This is what I calculated in the game. Bishop H7, very ugly for black. And if you take on G4, I could take this bishop right away. I could also just take this pawn, right? Because I can take this bishop whenever I want. And if you run the bishop back, trying to, save your pawn structure, I have G5, throwing the queen in. We have a mate in 4 here. Forced mate in 4, right? In terms of, black not being able to survive any longer than that, okay? Notice here, by the way, if this bishop moves, queen H8, ball game. Game over. Right, F6 doesn't really help, right? We just take and okay, G6, ball game, right? You play a move like knight F6. Well, you just gave up a knight, but okay, you are defending the bishop. But okay, we take the knight. You replace again. We take the knight. We take on H7. That's it, right? So, the Hippo, very aggressive. There's a lot of different things that can happen, especially along that H file. Right, H or A, that can be very dangerous, when we're playing attacking chess. But okay, in this game, we don't see that move H5, which again, I would have been totally fine with that knight F4 idea, attacking that very weak bishop on G6 with really nowhere to go except H7, which, as we saw, is not the best idea. But okay, in the game instead, we see the move of E5. Very solid move from black, right? Advancing in the center. Notice, by the way, though, black could have just played E5 right away, but they played E6 and then E5. And this is stuff that you see all the time when players are playing against the Hippo, right? They're kind of just developing their pieces in a normal way. They see the Hippo, and then they got to start kind of shuffling pieces around, oftentimes to squares that they could have just put them right away, okay? But okay, we see that move E5. I took this knight. I do this, honestly, most of the time when I'm playing the Hippo, and I play a move like G4, just tuck that knight behind. This is one of my favorite middle game ideas for the Hippo player. Just a nice way, gain some space, gain some attacking chances, and not really give up much in return. Okay, it's not like us playing this is really giving anything to black here in this position, right? The one downside of playing something like this is that H4 is weak, and oftentimes you'll see very good players, maneuver a knight, to a square like H4. Even in that case, there's ways to guard it. Or even advance sometimes with a move like H4 yourself if you have the time. But in this case, there's just no way for black to take advantage of that with this guy. Okay, so here we do see the move of rook E8. Now, black probably should have played the move of knight E8. Okay, and in that position, we have a dead even game. Black going for that H4 square, eyeing it up immediately, and white there is completely fine. Okay, but instead we see the move of rook E8. Why is this a blunder? Why is black losing this game now? Well, it's because this knight has nowhere to go. We play G5, and this is a common thing. I've done this plenty of times while playing the Hippo. Okay, this knight is trapped. It's crazy. This knight has nowhere to go, right? Because on our side of the board, with the Hippo setup, our D pawn takes away the central square. Our knight and queen take away H5. Our H3 pawn takes away G4. From the black side, this is a normal setup, right? They castle a pawn on H7, which, by the way, it's there when the game starts. A central pawn on knight supporting it. This is all normal stuff. Rook E8, though. is the mistake, because now knight e8 is not possible. Okay. So, okay, in this case, I mean, we're just going to win a piece for our pawn. We see d4. I end up, playing e4. Apparently I could have just took that knight, and I knew I could have, but I knew that e4 was a calm way to go about this, and I'm still going to win this knight. Still can't save it because d5 is covered. And okay, here, black takes on e4, and they take on g5. This also turns out to be a mistake, because we can take on g5, play h4. Notice if the queen runs away to e7 or something, h5, and the bishop is trapped. So black has to, practically speaking, give this bishop somewhere to go, but now we take it. Bishop h3, we're skewering this queen to the knight, and this knight simply falls off the board. Now we're up 4 points in material. We have queen g2. I end up saving my rook, and e4 is played. Now, some of you guys may be wondering, okay, wait, why is black just giving up their rook? And technically, you're 100% correct in thinking that this is not a good move, because Stockfish says it's terrible, right? We're just taking this rook, and that's exactly what happens. But from a practical standpoint, I think that this is a great strategy from black, okay? Because they're already down 4 points, okay? If I'm up 4 points in the end game, or if I'm up 10, both are a win. Both are a loss if I'm down that much material, right? If I'm down 4 points of material, what's the difference between 4 and 8, right? Of course, there's a difference there, and of course, if someone asked me, would you rather be down 4 or 8, I'd say 4. But in either case, I'm just dead lost. My point being, when you're down material, you got to play crazy. You got to play crazy. You got to mix the game up. You got to make it complicated and try to make your opponent make a mistake because of that, right? If you're up material, you want to trade down. You want to keep material on the board. You want a boring game where it's very boring, quote unquote, nothing much going on, but you just have an extra piece sitting on the board there. Okay. So in this case, black here is trying to make things crazy. I end up taking on e8. Notice here, black is threatening to take on d3 with check against my king. I respond by playing queen e2. Whole idea being, if you take, game over, right? So now this rook is pinned, right? In a sense, right? I mean, really, this pawn is pinned to the rook as, that rook's just hanging. King f8 doesn't really help black at all, because we always have that bishop a3 check idea in the air, just kind of forcing that king right back, or forcing the rook to block, which is obviously just fine for us. Black here plays queen g5. I end up taking on d4. Sometimes the best defense is just going up more material, so you have more to give back if you need to. Rook e6, I take that pawn, right? Rook e6, black here probably trying to, eye up that d3 pawn, but I just take. f5 here, I play queen c4, pinning that rook to the king on g8. Okay, so obviously the rook can't move, and if you defend it, I mean, there's a ton of things we can do there, but obviously the rook's pinned. We can castle. We're totally okay. Instead, we see the move of king f7, and I now play bishop e3. Okay, black here pretty quickly plays the move of f4, and I end up castling queenside. Notice here, I'm up 8 points material, but because I'm up 8. I have some leverage to give some material back, right? Because I'm up so much material. Black takes on e3, and it actually turns out that from this point, we just have a forced mate, okay? Or at least, a mate in 7, according to the engine, based on what black plays. Notice here, I mean, if you block with the queen, we appreciate it. Thanks to the queen, right? And if you run with the king to either g8 or e8, we can just take that rook right off. So really, you got to play king e7. We now step to the left 1 square with that queen. Rook d6, again, thanks for the rook, right? King e8, we have a mate in 1 there with rook f8 or queen f8. So instead, we see the move of c5. And okay, I just take on b7, king e8. And when I was reaching for the queen here, my opponent resigns as, we have a mate in 1, a mate in 1, mate in 2, mate in 2, mate in 2. Even mate in 2. All right, maybe mate in 3 there with queen b5. I mean, basically just don't hang your queen or rook and you're winning. Okay, just throwing a check without hanging something, you're going to win this. So, I was going for queen d7 or queen f7 there. Going back, let's say, this game was won pretty early on, right? I was kind of just up a piece, at move 12 practically. But okay, I want to keep this on your radar, right? I mean, when you have this kind of setup against a knight, it's very often a possibility that black traps their own knight, right? And in that case, g5 just crushing, right? Just winning a piece there. And yeah, the Hippo continuing to show that there's dangerous ideas coming right after move 10. Thanks for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well as hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of the chess content we have dropping soon. On top of that, I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon supporters for the month of September in 2023. We have some recently added benefits on top of what we already had, which is quite a bit. And that includes exclusive PGNs to every new Chess Giant video that comes out, as well as a once a month session, in which case I go over patrons' personal games. I'll see you all in the next one.